It's mid-January in Yakutia. Outside the village, the temperature is minus 58 degrees Celsius, and the wind makes it feel closer to minus 65. At this level of cold, if you drop a bucket of water, it will turn to stone at your feet. But for Sergei, this is just another normal morning. Today, he has to bring enough water for the entire village. If he fails, dozens of families will have no water to drink, cook with, or bathe in this week. In the coldest place on Earth, if water stops, life stops. So how can one man with an old truck carry that responsibility in minus 60 degrees? Sergei is 45 years old. He lives with his wife, Lena, and their 10-year-old daughter, Anya, in a small wooden house on the edge of the village, where snow lies deep almost all year round. The village has just over 70 residents. There is no running water, no underground pipes. The permafrost would destroy them. That's why Sergei is the only waterman, driving his old truck every day, hauling big tanks of water from a spring 8 kilometers away. In Yakutia, keeping warm means survival. But having water is what allows people to live like human beings, to drink hot tea, cook soup, and heat the bathhouse on Sundays. If he fails today, the whole village will have to melt clean ice just to survive. Ice they try to save for drinking, to breathe through the long winter. 5 a.m. The sky is still black. Sergei wakes up before anyone else in the house. The first thing he does is not brush his teeth or wash his face. He runs to the kitchen and opens the stove door. All night long, the fire has been slowly dying. He stirs the ashes, adds several thick logs, and the flames come back to life, pushing warmth into every frozen gap between the wooden planks. In Yakutia, if the stove goes out, the entire house can freeze solid in just a few hours. Lena tucks Anya deeper under the blanket and whispers, "Sleep a little more. It's minus 50 outside." She puts the kettle on the stove to boil, preparing hot black tea for her husband to take on the road. Sergei dresses in layers: a wool sweater, a second sweater, a thick shirt, thermal long johns, warm pants, then a heavy winter coat made for minus 60 degrees, and his fur boots that have carried him through 10 winters. He steps into the yard. The air hits his face like a storm of needles. In the corner of the yard, his old green truck stands still, covered in a thin, shining crust of ice. He opens the hood, checks the hoses, pours in more antifreeze, and plugs in the engine heater connected to the house. In this kind of cold, engines don't just struggle
Enough
to
for
start.
a week of soup.
They
Thank
can
you,
crack
son.
if you try to start them, while the oil is still as thick as frozen butter. While the engine slowly warms, Sergei carries the big plastic tanks, one by one, onto the truck bed. His breath comes out in thick clouds, freezing on his scarf as white crystals. Today, his mission is clear. He must deliver enough water to at least 20 households before dark. Because tomorrow, the forecast says the temperature will drop to minus 63 degrees Celsius. And even for Sergei, that's a day when he doesn't dare sit behind the wheel. 7 a.m. A strip of pale blue appears on the horizon. The engine finally roars to life, a low, rough sound like an old animal waking up in the taiga forest. Sergei drives out of the village. The truck's wheels roll over solid ice and packed snow, and every turn is a test of control. One wrong brake, and the truck could slide sideways like it's on glass. In many villages in
The sauna is
Yakutia,
ready, my
there
love.
is no central water system at all. Underground pipes crack in the permafrost. Above-ground pipes freeze solid. So watermen like Sergei become the beating heart connecting the village to its only clean water source. After about 30 minutes
Papa,
bouncing along the icy
did
road,
anyone go
he reaches a
without
clearing
water
in the
today?
forest where a stream is still flowing under the
No.
ice. From above, it
Everyone
only
has
looks
enough
like
to
a
live
white,
another week.
untouched blanket of snow. But beneath it is a meter of hard ice, and deeper still, a black river moving slowly in the dark. Sergei takes his ice auger, drills a hole through the thick ice, turn after turn, until a small dark circle of water appears, breathing fog into the frozen air. He kneels, drops a metal scoop into the hole, and hauls up bucket after bucket of crystal clear water, pouring it into the big plastic tanks on the truck. Each full tank weighs over 40 kilos. He repeats this dozens of times, his hands going numb inside his gloves, but he can't stop for too long. Even the water he's just collected will begin to freeze solid if it sits too long in this cold. When the last tank is full and tightly closed, Sergei looks through the shimmering steam from his breath and mentally goes through the list of homes waiting for him. The elderly woman living alone at the end of the road, the young couple with a newborn baby, the family with 3 kids, all fighting the flu. He knows very well, each tank on that truck is more than just water. It's bowls of hot soup, kettles of tea, and rare, precious baths in the middle of winter. On the way back to the village, the wind picks up. Snow begins to blow across the road, fine and light as dust, wrapping the world in a white haze. Suddenly, the sound of the engine changes. There's a dry, sharp knock from under the truck. The temperature gauge jumps up, then drops down again. Sergei frowns, eases off the gas, but it's too late. The truck shudders, coughs, and dies. All around is empty, open snowfield. No houses, no people, only a line of skinny birch trees standing silent in the storm. He tries the ignition again. Once, twice. Only a hard, metallic clicking answers him. At nearly -60 degrees, every minute outside is a race against your own body. His fingers start to go numb inside the gloves. His breath freezes on the scarf, forming tiny icicles. Sergei knows very well, if he leaves the truck for too long, if his body temperature drops too far, he may never make it back to the village, and neither will the water. He opens the door, drops to his knees in the snow, and crawls under the truck to check the lines and hoses. The wind slams snow into his face, stinging like salt on an open wound. For a moment, a terrible thought crosses his mind. If I can't fix the truck today, the whole village will be boiling snow just to survive this week. He grits his teeth, moves faster, more decisively. He finds a frozen section of the fuel line, hits the stiff part with his gloved hand until the ice cracks, and pours in a bit more of his homemade antifreeze mix, a trick he learned from his father, who drove trucks on these same roads. Back in the cabin, he turns the key again. The engine shakes, groans weakly, then finally roars back to life. The truck breathes again, and so does he. Outside, the blizzard is still howling, but inside the cabin, one man and a load of precious water are moving forward once more, back toward the village that depends on them. Moments after leaving the target, engine number 3 lost power and stopped. Almost simultaneously, flak tore through the nose, shattering cockpit glazing and depressurizing the aircraft. Hydraulic pressure dropped toward warning levels. Caldwell faced 2 options. Option A, order an immediate bailout. At that altitude and temperature, over enemy territory, survival odds were poor, but doctrine recommended it when control was compromised. Option B, attempt to keep the aircraft flying, leave formation, and head back toward England. This violated safety guidance and exposed the aircraft to fighter attack, but offered a chance for everyone to survive. Caldwell chose the second option. Not out of bravado, in many Yakutian villages, there is no running water at all. People depend on water trucks, streams, and blocks of ice cut from rivers or lakes. Winter temperatures here often stay below -40–50 degrees nights for weeks, and on the coldest days, can drop toward -60 -1 In this kind of cold, pipes can burst, fuel can freeze, and even metal becomes fragile. That's why vehicles are treated like lifelines, and people like Sergei are more than just workers. They're the reason the village can keep going through winter. One trip to collect water can mean 15-20 kilometers of driving on icy roads. If the truck breaks down far from the village, the driver has only a short window of time to fix it
today?
or get help before frostbite and hypothermia become deadly.
Everyone has
In this
enough to live
tiny
another
village,
week.
surrounded by ice, almost no one notices the old green truck going back and forth each day. But every bucket of water Sergei delivers turns into hot soup for children, tea for grandparents, and rare, precious hours in a steaming bathhouse. In Yakutia, life isn't kept warm only by stoves and heaters, but by quiet people like him who keep everything moving. What about where you live? Who are the people silently keeping your street, your building, your city running? The gas delivery man, the garbage collector, the night shift worker at the power plant?